would you like me to offer an ancestral clearing for the group?
Yes, let's do it.
I'll give you give everybody an idea of again of what the practice is. It's a prayer practice, so we ask whatever you call the highest of higher power, the highest source, God, Creator, Infinite, whatever. We ask it to help us release that which no longer serves us. And so everyone listening to this, because we do it in the present moment, we're accessing past, present, and future all at once. The replay is as powerful as the live. Just breathe normally and let these words pass over you. Infinite Creator, all that you are, thank you for the gift of life and connection. We ask humbly that you please help us in all our relationships and all our ancestors and all of their relationships.
Welcome to the Awakened Mumma podcast, a space where we explore powerful healing modalities, deep conversation, and holistic tools to support your journey to wellness, wholeness, and empowerment. If you're ready to heal, grow, and rise, you're in the right place. Don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button so you never miss an episode. Welcome to the Awakened Mumma podcast. Elizabeth, you are a multifaceted trauma coach, and today you're going to take us through a healing session. So I'm super excited with the beautiful timing because this episode is dropping on Mother's Day.
I'm excited to be here. Thank you so much, Crystal. So I'm a stress management and historical trauma specialist. I wouldn't really call myself a trauma coach. I do ancestral clearing, and that is an aspect of historical trauma. And it informs the stress management piece that I do. Yeah. Okay. And I have within the ancestral and the historical, I have a little bit of a specialty, if you could really say that we could have specialties, in the mother wound, which is kind of the mother connection, also, I work with what's called the witch wound within women, and I also work I do a lot of work on those two things, and I also do a lot of work with women as they intersect with the patriarchy. There's just there's a lot of historical trauma around that, and if we can help people deal with the imprint, that the ancestral imprint of those things, and how it's showing up today, that gives them some leverage over their current stress issues, if that makes sense. Yeah, which we could flesh that a little more, but that gives everybody an idea of what I do.
Awesome. And you off air, you did a clearing for me with my hips because I've had hip pain since I was 15, and it has been through our family. So I believe it has been a generational thing, and I'd like to update you. Okay.
Very good.
I haven't had hip pain since. So it's been, what's it been, like nearly about 2 weeks?
Been a couple of weeks. Yeah.
Yeah. And my hip pain is it's there if I'm on my feet for long periods of time. Like I mentioned, my hips may freeze during sex. Like it's just, I haven't had it. And the strange thing is when I was at the shopping center and I was on holiday, so I didn't have anything to, put the twins in. I was on my feet carrying the twins like for hours. And the funny thing was I didn't get the hip pain. What I got the next day or towards the end of the day was actually muscle soreness around my hips. So it was like my muscles were finally able to work.
They came online.
Yeah.
Awesome.
And I enjoy it. It wasn't bad like my hips would be. And I quite enjoy when you do a workout and you get that muscle soreness, it tells you you've activated some stuff. I quite enjoyed that because I was like, that's not my hip pain. That means that my muscles have been activated and they're finally working. Like, what is this, the first time in my life?
Wow. That's exciting. Yeah. That's exciting. Yeah, this work is quite astonishing. I just came out of another training that my ancestral clearing teacher did. I work at a support role when he does the trainings, and it was just so interesting because people don't really realize how fast we can release these things. Now, sometimes it comes off in layers, but sometimes it doesn't, and it's kind of exciting. So thank you for the report, and I'm so glad things are resolving and moving back in a normal direction. That's beautiful. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I found it really interesting, especially the muscle soreness that I was like, because I know when when you've got joint pain or whatever, then you should be building the muscle around it. Well, I'm 42. You think I could have built the muscle around my hips by now? That obviously wasn't the issue. And yeah, to feel that muscle soreness was like, I'm going to finally be able to actually have muscle around my hip. That
Mhm.
is, yeah. So it was nice. So thank you.
Awesome. Yeah.
So I noticed you have a bit of a prayer freebie that I downloaded. I just want to tell
Mhm.
people about quickly. That is, I will put the link below actually, but if you want to just speak into that a little so that people know, yeah, what you've got to offer.
Sure. So I'll just put a little frame around what ancestral clearing is. It's a very specific energy modality that addresses imprints from the past. It could be this lifetime, but we normally find that whatever's showing up in the present moment usually has a root way in the past, not just, it could be from childhood, but that may have a root. The thing from childhood may have a root in the past. And the practice is called ancestral clearing, which was pioneered by a man named Howard Wills, and then further developed and is taught by a man named John Newton of healthbeyondbelief.com. I took his training back in 2014, and because I was so impressed with it, was just so impressed with it and I've been in the practice ever since. So it's energy work, but it's actually a prayer practice. And I have a science background, so that is interesting to me. I remember just before I first ran into this practice and met John and was introduced to this practice, a couple of years before that, I had, because I have the science background, I had read a couple of studies on scientific studies that had been done on the power of prayer. So I knew that it had gotten science's attention. And I also understood, just to kind of frame the practice a little bit, I also understood once I learned about quantum physics that the quantum field, the present moment, is this space that where we access past, present, and future all at once. So when we're present, we have this access. Ancestral clearing takes advantage of presence, and also we reference source, the source of all that is, whatever made all of this that we're in. We ask it to help us release that which no longer serves us. So we carry this stuff, and I remember when I first got into this practice, I had some issues, old wounds with my mom that I just didn't know how to. I didn't have any tools or have any. I just lived with it, and it was painful, and so I didn't know how to deal with it myself. Well, this practice, we give that, we just offer it to source, and it takes it. We offer it, and we ask for help releasing, and it's not like uh, it's taking anything from us. It's actually helping us release. And there's a distinction there. It's not taking anything, it's just helping us release and resolve. So that's an important distinction.
So would you say that the person that you're working with then has to be open to the release in order for it to be
Yeah, it's kind of
successful?
interesting. I love the question because the person that I'm working with, it was a group, um, they want the help. If they want the help, they get the help. What's kind of cool is that they don't have to believe in source or higher power. They don't have to believe in any of that. If they want the help, then that's enough. And I love that so much. It's kind of like gravity acts on you whether you believe it in or not.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
kind of like that,
absolutely.
right? So I love that about the practice. So wanting the help and being able to be present and then having, really just being able to stay with whatever, be aware of whatever the thing is, and the practitioner, as me as a practitioner, helps that person. You brought an issue in hips, and then I just kind of went with, you know I do what I do. But really, all I was doing is really helping to kind of hone in the issue around the hips. And this was it was source, creator, God, whatever you call that. That was the thing that was doing the healing part. That was a thing between you and the creator. That I don't do the healing. That's between you and creator. That's the thing that's kind of cool. Yeah. Yeah.
I love that. So, do you have any other message that you'd like to share? If there was a question that I could ask you that you'd like to
Mm.
speak into.
Well, I'd like to talk a little bit about the maternal line and its influence because it took me a while to really understand that. We feel it, but we don't really understand. We may feel it unconsciously, or we may feel it consciously, but we don't really understand what it is. And with my science mind, the more I can understand, the better. So one of the things that they discovered is that was when our grandmother was 4 months pregnant with our mother, the eggs that become us are developed. So we're now spending time in our mother's energy and our grandmother's energy for 5 months. So what's happening with our grandmother during those 5 months is affecting our mother and us. So if we get this from time to time. There might be women get intense when they're pregnant. They worry about things, and they have a lot of reaction, and sometimes things between the couples aren't so good. And there's all kinds of things that happen with pregnancies. And so the important thing to kind of understand is that as developing creatures, we're swimming in all of that. We're affected by that energetically. We're affected by that. So that's interesting. Then when you think about that, well, our grandmother was in her grandmother for 5 months, and her grandmother was in her grandmother for 5 months. And now you just are going back down the line, and now you're being able to see a maternal influence through the whole line. And that's powerful.
Yeah, yeah,
Right,
absolutely.
when you
That's
think
really
about all the
interesting.
things our mothers have been through. And
And if it's not your mother that's had sort of a toxic environment, it's not necessarily come from her experience. It could lead back to when she was in her mother's womb and she
yeah.
could have been, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So one of the things that I'm actually getting ready to do, because we're recording. We're going to be letting this drop on Mother's Day, but later this month I'll be doing a group ancestral clearing that I call the Motherline Mysteries. It's an ancestral clearing workshop for 2 hours, and we'll be just looking at the mother line and the influences in our lives around this issue. And one of the things that I was just looking at yesterday in preparation for all this, last week, was just the effect of unresolved grief in the lineage, right? So when we're so busy surviving, we don't have, we just keep moving. You can't heal when you're running. When you're busy surviving, you can't, so what happens there with that energy of, I lost my husband in war, or etc., right? What happens with that energy when the grief goes unresolved? It stays in the energetic field, and it gets passed along.
Yeah. Well, that's
So,
really interesting. I lost my auntie who I was really close to when I was pregnant with my first child to cancer.
wow. So, can you tell me more about that?
She found out she had cancer, and I found out I was pregnant around the same time.
Uh-huh.
When I look back, I think that the family not only was optimistic as best they could be, but they
Hmm.
were also trying to shelter me because they didn't want to upset the baby or
Of
me,
course.
and
Yeah.
in turn the baby. So the day that I got the phone call that said, Auntie Wendy's going to palliative care,
Mm-hmm.
and back then I didn't even know what palliative care was. And I was like, what does that mean?
Mm-hmm.
I was so shocked because we had been hoping and wishing that everything was going to be okay.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, and then that was the month before I gave birth to my son, she passed. And I just was so upset and so confused. And
Mm.
um, that has probably been the biggest drive for me to be very health conscious. I grew up raised with a value of health, but watching someone I was so close to
Of
die
course.
was, I've made it my mission that my children will never watch me die like that. So,
Of course, yeah, I hear that. And I have in my family also, I didn't mention this, but part of my stress management work is as an addiction recovery coach. And I saw that's a theme in my family, and I had my own brush with that. I had my own issue with addiction, and finally found my way out of that. Um, and so that's a huge part of the work that I do now is I literally just got off the phone before I came here with someone who needed to had something that kind of shook her, and we help each other. We help each other, stay grounded and find what is the truth. This is the question: what is the truth in the moment, right? And what where am I making meaning? Maybe where there isn't any, or it's not the truth. It's so as an example, um, I mean, this might sound a little bit far out, but it's the difference between where's our focus on the impermanent or the permanent, and we have a reaction when people pass, especially family members, but the body is not going to stick around. The spirit will. So our challenge, as I see it anyway, is to then, when somebody dies in our family, or somebody dies, it's our friend, the work is to learn to experience them as a spiritual form instead of a physical form. And that's the work. And because we can't touch and see and all the things, it's a different journey. It's a different journey. But we're pointed towards, to get back to what I was saying, we're looking at the truth, the eternal nature of the soul, rather than the part that was here temporarily. You see what I'm saying? So we're
yeah.
trying to keep our eye on the truth. And with all the distractions here on Earth School, that's a practice. That's a practice.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, that's something like I was definitely looking for signs that she was still with us and watching over us.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, yeah,
I had now this is just an animal, but still, we're all connected to our beings are beings. I just had a cat for 16 years, and then last February she developed a kidney, an incurable kidney, and they palliative care for her. And it got to the point, it was like, yeah, it's time to put her down. And that was, boy, that was hard. That was really hard. Anyway, I went through that, passed on, and I was like, yeah, I need to learn to, I need to learn to experience her as a spirit. Within a week, a mourning dove shows up right outside my window and has been living there. I hear it every morning and all day long.
I love that.
I can't explain any of that.
Yeah.
That's not sciency. It doesn't matter. It was just like, oh, okay, I see what's happening here.
Hello.
Oh my
I love
goodness.
that.
So we are connected to all the mothers that ever were in our line. And if you look at, I forget the number, but if you look at evolution and you look at the mitochondria, which comes through the mother, all our mitochondria comes through the mother. There's actually a bottleneck in the variation between one kind of mitochondria and another. And the interpretation of that years ago, when I first ran into this research, probably 30, maybe 40 years ago, was that the lack of variation in the mitochondria indicates that there was a bottleneck. There were very few mothers or females around. So there was a dip in the human population. And I don't remember when that was. It was obviously a long time ago. So we're connected to these mothers. And I think that right there helps everybody kind of reframe what it is to be female, what it is to be human, because the males, they're feeling stuff through the mother line, through their mothers. It's not just the women that feel this stuff. And then mothers being mothers, right? How they're passing all this information down to their children.
I love the way that you explain things, because for anyone who, like me, hasn't sort of looked at this before, it's really interesting.
So there's the wounds, right? There's the anger and the sacred rage, and with the patriarchy and the persecution and all the stuff, right? And all the grief and stuff like that. And there's the gifts, right? I don't like to
Yeah.
sit in the wounds all the time. I like to, because we're this beautiful mix. So we have the gifts, our resilience, our disease resilience, our disease ability to handle diseases, our ability to adapt, amazing intelligence, the ability of a mother to, I mean, literally, I remember when I was pregnant. That's so funny. When I was pregnant, I studied all the books and I went to the classes and I did all the things and I ate. I did everything I was supposed to. And nobody told me what was going to happen once I delivered that baby. Nobody said that.
Oh my God, I felt the same. I came from a background of childcare and I was like, I don't really know what it's going to be like leading into. So I read all the pregnancy books and all. Yes, what to expect in the first year. Didn't really tell me what I should be expecting. I'm going to be for real. Like, yeah, continue. Yeah.
So I give birth to my son, and my whole physiology shifted. Like it was already shifting because I was pregnant, but I gave birth, and the mother lion awoke 100% in me. If anybody had tried to get between me and my son, they would have been done. I mean, it was like nobody said anything about that. They
Yeah.
missed that whole thing, which was like a huge, huge piece of it, right? I didn't know
Mm.
it was like this. Not even my own mother said to me, I remember she said, well, when you go into labor, you'll salute the pain. It's kind of like, like it's going to get your attention, which was a huge understatement, but that's my mom, right? But she never said anything about the afterwards, like in the books.
Yeah.
So I'm just saying, like that was a huge, because that's a force. That's a force that it's like it's in the epigenetic, right? It's in the wiring, but it doesn't get turned on until we actually give birth, and then all of a sudden all the switches turn. So just by the way, for people that don't know what I just said, there's the DNA, which if you can imagine a computer, the DNA would be the hardware on the computer. The epigenetics, that's epi means on the gene. Those are the switches that turn on and off depending on the environment. So the epigenetic part is like the software that goes on the hardware. So it depends on what's happening with the software as to how the computer is going to act. But there's these fundamental things that the hardware does, but depending on what the software is, yeah. So you get a different result. So that's what's happening. Those switches, just whoop, and now our husbands are like, "Who is this woman?"
Yeah. Motherhood does change you, doesn't it? And even to the like, I didn't even know the feeling. I mean, you can't really, but of love. Like, obviously, I had loved before, but when you see your child for the first time, it's such an overwhelming feeling of love that you've never ever experienced before. I didn't even know that was a thing.
Yeah,
Like,
they missed talking about
yeah,
that too. They
yeah,
missed the juicy pieces.
yeah, yeah,
I mean, they do talk about oxytocin, and they talk about the bonding and this and that. But what you and I are talking about is not what they think. They
yeah,
just whoop, they just go right by that. But that's the juicy part,
yeah,
you
yeah.
know.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there's so many things that if I had have been able to read a book, none of all of that stuff wasn't in it, and I would put it all in one book, just and call it the missing pieces to motherhood that no one talks about. Like it's just
That's a good book. I would read that book.
yes,
Oh
but
my goodness.
you don't know that there's missing pieces until you're in it. That
So I'll give you another example of one of the things that we do with this work. And we don't make claims saying that, when we do this work, this will happen. We can't do that. But we get reports, and just like you gave me your report, right? So it's not necessarily causal, but there's a correlation. It's just not necessarily a causal one. We never would say it was causal. But I had a friend here some years ago who had gotten married, and she was maybe 3 years into her marriage, and they've been trying to get pregnant, and it just wasn't happening. And she asked me to do an ancestral clearing. We did work around the issue from our perspective. And I say we because it's me and creator. So it's very specifically said that way. And she got pregnant within 6 months.
Wow.
Has a beautiful child. And I'm not, it's not just one person. It happened. This is something that's part of the practice that we do. And it's interesting, think about it. And I'm not just talking about the energetic, the ancestral pieces about, we can have a conversation about those blocks, but just imagine someone trying to get pregnant and can't, and maybe has an unworthiness issue, or what's wrong with me, or something. Like energetically, they're going to have a contraction. They're going to, instead of expansion, they're going to have tension energy around that, which isn't exactly creative energy. It's kind of the opposite, right? So that's just that. And then you can talk about, well, like in my family, for instance, I didn't know it until a few years ago when we happen to have a lot of records in our family that go back, 12, 14 generations. And when I was born, my mother went into a deep depression, like as soon as she delivered. She had a very different reaction than you and I did, which is interesting to me. But this happens. This postpartum depression can be quite powerful. Literally left the hospital and went away for 9 months. And I ended up in an incubator and alone for a couple of weeks in the hospital before I went home. And uh, and also I was born with a closed pyloric valve, which is that valve that opens when you swallow, so that contents can go into your stomach. And they didn't have NICUs back in those days. My pediatrician put my mattress at my whole bed at a 45-degree angle, and gravity opened it in 2 weeks.
Wow.
But until then, I'm not exactly sure what. I guess they had just had IVs to keep me hydrated. But here's the thing. I often wondered, like, what happened with my mom? She had traumas in her own life, but when I looked at the family history, there were a whole bunch of records of miscarriages, and yeah, and then a lot of children that died in their first year. And so I was like, and then there were also reports of this melancholy. Right. So very interesting that was actually, you could see that in the lineage. And my mom just got a really big dose of it. Now, what was interesting, when I gave birth to my son, I was mostly tired. It was kind of a long, I remember being tired, but I had the wave like you did, that like, this is amazing. I had that. But it was like, I was also tempered with, like, I'm exhausted. I literally didn't feel like I had any ATP left in any cell in my body. It was that bad.
I can relate.
But what was interesting was, compared to my mom, the first time that I remember really being like kind of in that kind of depression thing was 3 days later. Interestingly, my father walked in. He took a plane, and he walked into the hospital room where I was, and I burst down into tears, and I had no idea why. I don't like, to this day, I have no idea. It doesn't matter. It's just the way it was just the body is trying to, like, it went from not being pregnant, the hormones, to being pregnant, to not being pregnant again, and nursing. So those are three different, like, huge hormonal shifts that we all, and the emotions are going to get mixed up in that, at the one extreme, to one level or another. In my case, I didn't have that deep, heavy depression my mom did. I just would start crying, and I didn't really know why. And it didn't matter. I just let it happen, and I just kept going. So it didn't create like a weight. it was just, it was what it was. And I didn't, and my husband, was supportive, and my son didn't care about it. He was just a baby. And I just went on. So that's a very different experience than I'm so taken out by this. I have to go away for 9 months, because it's so heavy. Yeah. And get help. Right. So that gives you an idea of the variation that can happen in the lineage just around that event.
Yeah. And it's such a huge time in our lives too. So when you don't really understand what's going on within our bodies, why certain things are coming up.
Yeah, and then it's like, I didn't have younger children. I was the youngest of two. And so I didn't have experience. My only experience with taking care of young things was taking care of a puppy. That was it, which was a good idea, but it wasn't the same. And so now it was like, oh my God, I have to take care of this. I mean, I had a panic attack when I took it home, when I took Maston home from the hospital, because I was like, I don't think I can do this. It's kind of like that. But
Mine was
you
the
know,
opposite because in hospital, my firstborn, he was just asleep and everything was great. And then we went home and then he didn't. So I was in this hospital room with like three other mums who were constantly asking for painkillers, always pressing the button. And I'm like, I'm trying to sleep and I'm not taking any painkillers. I'm not pressing the button and my baby's sleeping. And I'm just like, I just want to go home. And then I went home and that's when, yeah, he decided sleep wasn't really something he was down for. So,
it takes a while for them to get sorted out in a rhythm. And
yeah,
it takes us a while to get sorted out in the rhythm too. And it's a lot. It's a lot. Yeah.
it's
Would you
definitely a
like
journey.
me to offer an ancestral clearing for the group?
Yes, yes, let's do it.
I'll give everybody an idea of, again, of what the practice is. It's a prayer practice, so we ask whatever you call the highest of higher power, the highest source, God, Creator, Infinite, whatever. We ask it to help us release that which no longer serves us, and we do it by using the word forgive. So using that word forgive very specifically to mean offering up that which no longer serves us, and we do it with gratitude and humility. So we say please and thank you. And so everyone listening to this, because we do it in the present moment, we're accessing past, present, and future all at once. The replay is as powerful as the live. So wherever you are, unless you're driving in a car, do this later.
Hit the save button.
Yeah. Um, just sit quietly and just notice what you're feeling in the body, just as far as sensation. And then give it a number from a level of intensity from 0 to 10. For instance, I can feel my uh, sitting bones on the chair and my feet on the ground. And I have a little bit of warmth in my mid back area today. And I would give all of that a number of about 2.5, probably, as far as intensity goes. So whatever that number is for you. And just breathe normally and let these words pass over you. Infinite Creator, all that you are, thank you for the gift of life and connection. We ask humbly that you please help us in all our relationships and all our ancestors and all of their relationships, so that all space, time, lives, lifetimes, realms, and incarnations. For any time there was a rupture in the relationship between mother and child in the womb, through the birth experience, as a newborn, or at any other time, and for all that led up to and arose from it, including unhealthy beliefs or limitations, for poor boundaries, an unrealized sense of self, or poor self esteem. Please help us all, everyone involved, to forgive one another and forgive yourselves, please, and thank you. For any time mothers felt fearful or powerless in the face of the experience of conception, gestation, or birth, or any adverse effects this had on both the mother and the child. For all injustice, anger, regret, or letdown around any unhealthy womb experience or birth experience, including sexual diseases, miscarriage, or abortion, and for any guilt or shame that followed. For any time anyone felt a sense of shame or that there was something wrong with them, but they didn't know why. Please help you all forgive and release everyone involved, and help you all forgive yourselves, please, and thank you. For any codependence that developed between mothers and children throughout the entire lineage, and for all that arose from it, including but not limited to caretaking others to the point of resentment and exhaustion. For neediness or a feeling you had to have the approval of others in order to act rather than stand on your own power and act from there. Please help everyone involved, directly or indirectly, to forgive and release one another, and forgive and release yourselves. Please and thank you. For any time women felt the weight of the obligation to bear children but didn't experience the joy of it, and for all that the children felt because of it. For any time anyone felt the pressure of having to live the unrealized dreams of the mother rather than their own, and for any time anyone felt they had to play it small in life rather than rise to their full potential. Please help everyone involved to forgive one another and forgive themselves. Release one another and release themselves, please, and thank you. Divine Creator, please help all the mothers forgive all the children, and help all the children forgive all the mothers. Help all the fathers forgive all the children, and all the children forgive all the fathers. Help all the women forgive all the men, and all the men forgive all the women. Please help them all forgive each other throughout the entire lineage for all that happened and didn't happen, and for all anyone made it mean, and for all the letdown because of it, for all of it, for once and for all, now and forever. Please and thank you. Please and thank you. Please and thank you. And just take a nice big breath in and let it out, and notice how that feels in the body and what the number is, big or small or different.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. So that's an example of the gift, the free gift, which is a set of 8 ancestral clearing prayers. Some are around abundance, some are around peacemaking, just kind of peace, harmony, a relationship with the earth, all these different aspects of our, kind of our relationships. And I encourage you all. It's free. I encourage you all to give it a try and work with the prayers. They're quite interesting and powerful. So enough said.
I have a question. When you're working with someone, do you ever feel something that you normally wouldn't feel, like, and it's coming through them? Because when you said to pick an area, it was my lower back. I'd already picked the number 2. And I'm like, is she fucking kidding me? Like, because we have genetic scoliosis, and I have a bulging disc in my L5. And so while I'm not in pain right now, like, but I'm also good with pain, I felt like it's about a 2. Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, interesting.
And then you said that, and I was like, what?
I was literally just had a session with someone this morning, and working away, and she's talking about like the shoulder and the back and the this and the that, and I'm feeling my throat and my ears just like, and I'm like, okay, and I'm just noticing I've got my focus on, but I'm feeling this thing, and we get another 5 minutes and then I'm still feeling it, and then she says, I'm feeling all this tension in my throat and my ears. I said, how long has that been going on? Well, that's been happening for the last few minutes. I just didn't mention it. Okay, gotcha. We've been cleared for it anyway. Very interesting. This is so as practitioners. I love that you asked that. As practitioners, this is very interesting work because remember, present moment. We're all sitting in the present moment. We're all connected. This is an example of how we're all one. And as a practitioner, you're doing the work, but I'm kind of this in between you and creator a little bit in terms of focusing, and I'm in the mix there. You're kind of triangulating the 3 of us. And my job is to stay present without judgment and just notice what information's coming in. Like I was like, oh, I've got this thing in my sitting bones and I've got this thing in my back, and just whatever it is, and remain in a neutral space. And I think that's really, for me, this is my meditation practice really helps with this. But that's really the magic in the ancestral clearing as a practitioner, being able to do that and really attune to the client and just attune to the moment. The information's all here in the present moment. The question is, am I present enough to be able to actually, you know,
Yeah. Yeah. Love that. And do you have something that people can take home and implement today that they can benefit from?
well, I would, I love this part as a stress management person that it all starts with the breath. So we're born on an inhale, we die on an exhale. The quality of our life depends on the quality of our breath. And so it's really important that we learn to breathe consciously. So I wanted to leave everybody with a gift of something very simple but very profound, which is the gift of a long, slow, deep inhale and a long, slow, deep exhale, keeping that exhale as long or longer than the inhale. There's an intimate connection between a long exhale and the brain and the nervous system. It sends a signal to the nervous system to calm down. So when we get activated by the world, and there's plenty in the world for activating it, there's plenty of distraction out there. We can't think our way out of that. We actually have to breathe our way out of that. The nervous system has to actually believe that it's safe in order for us to actually calm down. And the trick is the long, deep breath, keeping that exhale as long or longer than the inhale. That's the trick. That's a priceless gift, which I, by the way, was not taught until about 12 years ago. So I'm just saying, like, that was not taught to me in pre-kindergarten or even in college.
It's definitely something that should be taught in schools. Like
Yeah.
our twins know because we taught them a trick that, because they're two. When we were in the car, and car trips were, because where we live it's half an hour to anywhere. So, and if we were going to go to a big town, it's like an hour and a half away. And so I'm teaching them smell the flower, blow out the candle.
Love that.
And yeah, and I've shared that on previous episodes, so I won't go too much into it, but we took it into the bedroom to help them go to sleep
Mhm.
after we had already sort of been doing that with them. And it really helped with just calming them down for bedtime and just
Sure.
helping them regulate their emotions. And now they will say things like, "Are you okay?" And they will start to do. And literally, it's funny because we were mucking around and I wasn't actually upset, but an Ocean, he's such a lover and a feeler. He didn't get that, and he came over to me and he smelled the flower.
That's so cute.
Oh, thank you, darling. Mummy's just mucking around.
That's
I'm
great.
okay.
That's so great. That's so great. Yeah, that's so
Yeah,
great.
yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, breath work is just so important, and it's such a simple thing to be able to bring into a moment where you really just need to have that time to.
Yeah, so that regulation, little ones, they depend on their parents and caregivers to help them regulate because they don't know how. They're just not capable. And what's interesting, because I was born in a dysregulated family, so just nobody understood any of that. And a lot of us didn't. I mean, we just, clearly you do. Your children are blessed that way. Dysregulated parents raise dysregulated children, and then they raise dysregulated children. And I do remember my son, when he would cry, my husband, I had a back injury, so I couldn't really do the holding at that time. But my husband would just hold him and just kind of, stand and just kind of rock a little bit back and forth or forward and back. And that was, he just waited until, but he stayed very calm, right? And it was a process, but it was beautiful to watch that he just was able to stand there and with the crying baby right in his ear and just stay present stoic, and you know, he, you know, it was beautiful to watch. The thing is that he did that kind of, that was a natural thing. Nobody
I
taught him
just want to
about the,
say, isn't it sexy watching a man be a good dad? Like,
yeah,
honestly, it's such a beautiful thing. I
yeah,
love watching my husband with the twins, and I'll just be watching and sitting there smiling, and then I'll make a comment, you're such a good dad.
yeah, yeah. It's pretty special. You know, they hold this in the larger sense, in kind of the spiritual sense. The celestial structure is the masculine, and the dance is the feminine, right? So our all the energy in the cosmos is the feminine, right? So it's just how it's represented. So when we have male energy in the household that's stable and provides this beautiful grounded structure, that it provides a whole measure of safety, that you know, you can't go out and buy that on a shelf. You know, you can't. That's
And
super special.
that's what women want and need, just is that safety from a man. Like, we go back to hunter gatherer days.
Exactly.
That's
Yeah. Yeah. One of the things, by the way, just as kind of in passing it here at the end, that we clear for in men that have, you know, some kind of like a burden, maybe in relationship with women, is anytime a men came home empty handed and couldn't feed the family. Yeah. You can imagine what an imprint and how contracting
yeah.
that would be, you know, what a weight
Yeah,
that
that's
would be. Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, wow. Yeah, you would, that would be so heavy as a man to come
Can
home.
you imagine? Yeah, but it's real. I mean,
Yeah.
that when somebody's carrying that, and then you know, you bring that in, and you know, create, and they're open, and creators right there. You know, all of a sudden, like, wow, you know, you got a whole new person sitting in front of you now.
Yeah. Tell us, where can people find you?
Oh, you can find me at my website, which is my name, but with a dash, Elizabeth kipp.com. You got to put a dash in there. Otherwise, you'll find the other Elizabeth Kipp, who's a web designer and a photographer who's amazing, but she's not me. I have a lot of free resources there. I've got ancestral clearing prayers are there. I've got a blog. I've got, you know, you can book a session with me. You could do a free intro. There's all kinds of cool resources up there, and you can find me on social media.
Perfect. I will put all of your links below for people. Now, is there anything that I haven't asked that you would like to share today?
Well, I guess the only other thing I'd like to say is that the greatest healer in our lives lives within us, right? It's not out there. Like a doctor can set a bone and stitch up a wound, but it can't. They can't tell the body how to heal. Only the body knows how to do that. So that orientation, I think, is really important. That was something I didn't. Nobody told me that. I actually learned that the hard way. Yeah, because I kept looking out there, and I kept bumping up against. There's no answer. I'm looking in the wrong direction.
Yeah. Yeah, that takes me back to when I was going through just the hardest time in my life. And I was like, why? Why is this happening to me? And I was looking everywhere else for answers,
Mm-hmm.
and I had to start doing the work.
That's
And it
right.
was
Yeah.
in me.
Well, thank goodness that there's the work to do. You know.
Yeah, 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 absolutely. It's definitely changed the
Hmm.
trajectory of my life, that's for sure. So, yeah, do the work. Okay. Well, thank you for today, and thank you for blessing us with your beautiful prayers and clearings. And happy Mother's Day to everyone listening. What a beautiful gift.
Well, thank you so much, and happy Mother's Day as well.
Thank you. Thanks for being here, beautiful souls. The Awakened Mumma podcast is a special place for us to grow, heal, and rise together, because you're never alone on this journey. I'd love to connect with you, so don't be shy. Please comment below your takeaways and let us build this empowered community. Remember to hit like, hit subscribe, and join me every Sunday at 2:22 Angel Numbers for more conversations to support your wellness, wholeness, and awakening. I'm truly grateful you're here.